Hi, my name is Brian, and in this video I'm going to show how to route out a channel so that this track can go into a router table that I'm making. So I'm going to be using my Wixie digital gauge, and this is it's sort of cheating, but it works really well. So first thing I'm going to do is zero it. I'll actually zero it over here on my table saw. Okay, so now it's zeroed, and I'll come over here and take a reading on it. And I get 0.546, and then I'm going to take a reading on my so I'm off by just a little bit. So 546, and okay, so that makes nice short work out of that. Gets me to 0.558 for the depth of cut versus 0.556, so it'll be 0.02 of an inch underneath, and that is perfect. If you don't have one of these, they're about $25. Great device for just what I did right there. So the next step is going to be to figure out where I want to put this on the surface, and then to clamp some blocks to it, and then I'll route it out. One is I have located where I want my router insert to go, and I've marked that on the table. And I did that in part by bringing in pieces of the fence that I've purchased and just sort of setting them here and looking at what are the ergonomics of my table. And one of the parts that I brought in was coping sled, and I said, well, you know, how is this going to look? Is there enough space here to work my coping sled with this insert plate in this location? And there is. So what I did next is I clamped my track in place, and I've located it 2 1/4 inches from the edge, and then that puts it halfway in between the insert plate and the edge of the table. The table is going to be 48 inches long. The piece that I'm using is a little bit longer than this. If you have access to it, a piece of leftover surplus work surface is a fantastic bench. This is left over from some cubicles that I had at one point, and it's 1 1/4 inches thick. It's got a nice laminated surface on top. It's reasonably flat. It has a nice banding in the front that'll probably fall off as soon as I cut the edges. That doesn't matter. So the next step is I'm going to mark where I want the track. Let's use a pencil. That just makes sure that I have it marked. It'll be much easier to work with it. And then I'm actually going to use the, I don't have, well, I was going to use these as clamp, but it's not long enough, so I'll need to find a piece of material to clamp down. What I've got here is a piece of hardy trim that I'm using as a straight edge, and this is reasonably solid, so it will do the trick. And now the fun part is to line up this and check it. So what I want to do is remove material up to my line on both ends. And that looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some stronger clamps in place. These little clamps that I'm using are nice, but they don't have the bite of a C-clamp. And these will give me a good strong bite. I'm going to leave the other clamps in place. This just ensures that my board does not move while I'm cutting. My personal protective gear on, so I use just some nice $4 earmuffs from Harbor Freight, and then I have a 3M respirator and eye protection built in. And the reason I do this is that A, cartridge filters are great. It gives me a really good seal, keeps all the crap out of my lungs, but more importantly, I'm much more likely to use the combined gear than I am, and it removes the temptation to just put on the respirator, just put on the eye bar. Okay, so at this point I have routed out the channel and I will test fit this. Looks like I'm just a little shy. Looks like I need to just clean out a little bit more along here. It's pinching at this end. Okay, so I did have a little bit of a problem with the router. Doesn't look like it'll have material impact. It seems to have drifted. It's not the first time I've had that problem with this Ryobi router. This is a Ryobi R163, and it just doesn't seem to do a good job of holding whatever you set it to. So in the middle of the first cut, it drifted down about 1/8 of an inch as I went this way. You know, not a big deal. I'm going to use Gorilla Glue. It'll expand. It'll expand more than enough to take up this. In fact, I don't think I have enough Gorilla Glue on hand, so I'll have to wait until I get a bigger bottle of it. But this fits very nicely in here. It is just below the surface of my table, which is fine. That's where I want it. You know, it could be prettier, but I'm not after pretty. I'm after functional and inexpensive, and it is definitely both of those things. So next thing is I'll take a skill saw and trim the edges of my table to length, and that's next. So if you're interested in the dust collector that I'm running, check out some of my other YouTube videos. This is the shop-built dust collector with the 55-gallon barrel cyclone separator. It works great. It's probably not as nice as a $5,000 unit, but it didn't cost me anything near $5,000. I'd be surprised if I have a couple $100s into it. Now, in all fairness, I'm not counting all the attachments and hose, and I already owned the blower, so that made that part much simpler. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut corners, and to do this I need to find the right size hole saw. Alright, so this is my new DeWalt brushless cordless drill. It's a 20 volt Max XR. It's a great drill. So 4" and 3/8 holes in 1 1/4 inch MDF, and still got 1 bar left on the, no, it can't make up its mind if it's 1 or 2 bars, but there's still plenty of juice left in the battery. Absolutely amazing. Okay, so this has got to be the cheapest jigsaw that's on the market, but that's okay. It did the trick. The hole is slightly undersized because I will come back and finish it with a router. cleaned up really well. I'm really just freehanding this. I'm not concerned if there's a very small gap there. So what I'm going to do next is unplug the router before I adjust it. I really love my fingers. And then I'm going to lower the cutting blade. I'm going to let my dog out first. He wants to go outside. So there's a guide bushing on this, and so what I'm going to do is I need to get down about another 1/4 inch. So I'm just going to lower the guide bushing and latch it back in place, and that'll let me run around that and clean that out. And make it match, the lower part will match the top part. Okay, so the net result is that I've got a opening in my table that has about 1/16 of an inch of clearance. So, you know, I mean, in an ideal world there wouldn't be that much clearance, but you know what, that's okay, because it'll also fit my homemade router plates, or insert plates, which are these, which I copied, and that's in another video. And so these will fit in here very nicely with a little bit of room to spare. So all I need to do now is mount the, there's some levelers that go with these inserts, and then I need to put the tracks in for my fence. And so that'll be in part 2 of the video on how to make a router table from scratch. The stand is something that I welded, so sorry I didn't get into that. You need to figure out how to make a stand. You can make it out of wood. This one's made out of metal and has 4 nice wheels on it. And next time you see this, hopefully it will have the T-track glued in. Then I'll be ready to route out the slots for the fence to slide on, and then I'll have my nice router table. And I'll probably have a few $100s into this, but this is a 4-foot by 2-foot router table, and the commercial ones aren't this big, nor are they this solid. Thanks for watching.